Morning, hello, my name's Sheridan and I run Power Hour training. Most of you know that by now. Most of you have heard of Power Hour, but it just occurred to me the other day that maybe not everyone knows exactly what you get if you purchase Power Hour training materials. So if you will indulge me for a few minutes, I'm actually going to take you through what you get with a typical session. Now, as you know, if you go onto our website, which is power-hour.co.uk, you can purchase over 40 bite-sized training modules. But what do you actually get with them? Well, the first thing you get is a session leader's guide, which everything's downloadable, you print it off yourself. Now, what is the session leader's guide? Let me just explain to you. The first thing you get on all of them is just about this Power Hour session. So what it's designed for, how it's put together, how it's constructed, how best to run it. The second page is probably of particular interest to you if you're a trainer. We have preparation, what you need to do, how to use the guide, and other topics that may be useful. So that's a particularly useful page. So we don't leave you guessing as to what support material you might need. It's all written out there if you need post-it notes, if you need pens, if you need scissors and sellotape and counters and things like that. It's all written there for you. Then we get into the meat of the session. It's a fairly typical standout layout in terms of how things are written. So you can see the detail there that we go into. It's not a script, but it is very detailed as to the sorts of things that you should be mentioning, the sorts of things you should be discussing, the questions you might like to ask. And then on the side there, we've got any supporting materials, such as slides, workbook pages, if you need things like post-it notes. So you can see that there's quite a lot of detail in there, and we do give hints as well as to the sort of answers that you might be looking for if you are asking questions and having some sort of group discussion. Now, also in the session leader's guide, it is designed to be run in an hour. That can be quite tight, and sometimes I've really struggled to pick out 1 hour's worth of material. So in every single Power Hour, you will come across these grey sections too. Now, these grey sections are the optional sections. They are things which give you the opportunity to go into some of the topics in a bit more detail, or it's an additional sort of supplementary topic that you may want to introduce. So every time we've got one of those, it's in the grey, and you can decide whether or not you want to cover that. It always says at the start that if you include the optional material, it will increase the session to, say, 1 hour 45 minutes. Of course, you can include all of them, one of them, you can mix and match. And then at the end of the session leader's guide, we have suggested measurable activities to apply the learning. Because people can come along, have a great session, think, oh yeah, that was really interesting, and then not do anything differently. So what I've tried to do there is just give some practical hints and tips as to how people might apply their learning. This particular session leader's guide is Managing Underperformance. It's 9 pages long for a 1 hour session. So you can see I'm not going to be leaving you guessing as to what you need to cover. Until recently, we didn't have slides with Power Hours, but found a lot of people were requesting them. So with this particular topic, there are just seven slides. There we go. It's not a slide-driven session. With only an hour, if I put 20 slides in there, it will turn into a presentation. So on the slides, all you have are the main concepts, the objectives, the main models, and the majority of the session is supposed to be run by discussion, activity, and flip chart. So if you haven't got the option to use a PowerPoint and a projector, that really isn't going to hold you back at all. And the reason for that is that all the information that you need is included in the delegate workbook. Additional details, so sometimes in the session leader's guide I will say explain the 4 principles of see workbook page. So all your detail is in here. That's also going to be really useful if you don't have slides, because you can simply ask your delegates to refer to page 6 and talk through the model in front of them. So just to show you very quickly what a typical workbook would look like, that's the objectives and space for people to write their own objectives. The key models are in there. I use pictures to bring it to life. I include white space so people can make their own notes. And the whole idea of this is so that people have got something to refer back to at the end of the session, that they haven't got to sit there making copious notes. It's also, that's quite a text-heavy page, so that you as a trainer have got more information to fall back on. So it's really important that you read this as part of your preparation. It's also got some activities in there. So this is a sort of fill the blanks activity that people can do individually or in pairs. And in the workbook, this Managing Underperformance one is again 12 pages long, so there's 12 pages of information in there. What that covers is everything that's in the core session. So the core 1 hour session is all reflected in this workbook. And any optional sections that you decide to cover, if they aren't simply activities, if it's more content, I actually support that with handouts. So one of the optional sections here is the skill will matrix. So we've got a handout to support that. And the reason that isn't in the workbook is because if you decide not to run that section and it's in the workbook, so you're going to get some delegates saying, why didn't we cover that, we missed that out, or I don't understand where that fits in. So that gives you a lot more control over what content you're giving to your delegates. There's also another one in this, which is a performance improvement plan, a sampling performance improvement plan. And of course, the last thing you get with every single Power Hour is a double-sided key points sheet, which just has the very core models and theories on it. That's because even though the delegate workbook is beautiful and it took a long time to do and it's very useful, live in the real world and realise that once the session is over, lots of people aren't going to refer to it again, sadly. So the key point sheet is a quick reference guide and might be something that's useful to add onto your intranet if you have one. The other things that you might get with your Power Hour training materials are activity cards. Again, you need to download them, print them and cut them up. So we often do a lot of sorting activities. You will get case studies in some modules, you will get role play briefs in other modules, quizzes, questionnaires. So whatever material you need to run that session will be provided, obviously apart from consumables and physical things. So for example, if you need 20 Lego bricks, I won't be sending those to you. You need to source those for yourself, but it's all outlined in the Session Leader's Guide. So that's what you get when you get a Power Hour, and I hope you found that useful. Thanks a lot. Bye.